Yo, what's up, guys? It's coming back here again today with another video, and back with another recap of the NBA games from today. Great slate of games today. There were some blowouts. A bunch of games ended up being blowouts, but also some really good basketball. Some amazing individual performances as well. I could shout out Jamal Murray, Vucevic, and Joel Embiid. I'm going to talk about in a second, but just a good day to be a basketball fan. Before I get into it, I just want to say please consider subscribing if you're coming here from my Twitter. I drop videos like this on the daily, sometimes twice a day. Sometimes I'll miss a day, but it's pretty rare. I really like getting this content out to you guys, and the more that you guys show that support, the more I can give that content to you guys. So drop a like, comment below, leave me one of your takeaways from the 9 games today, and I'll just go ahead and get into it, I think. So the first thing I really want to talk about is Joel Embiid. He's in the title of this video. He is the main topic of this video. I don't think there's an argument right now to make against Joel Embiid being the MVP. I don't think there's anyone else there's no one that you could argue to me is the MVP right now over him. I don't think it's really a debate. I don't care what NBA.com's ladders say. They've all had LeBron James over Joel Embiid. He has been fantastic this season. He was actually my preseason MVP pick because I figured he was going to be on a warpath, coming off of a championship, hungry for another one, trying to chase down Jordan with his 6 rings. But Joel Embiid has been dominant. Like that is just the word you have to use when you talk about Joel Embiid this season. He's been dominant in the post. He's been dominant from 3. He's been dominant as a mid-range shooter. A mid-range jump shot for Joel Embiid is basically a layup at this point. If you are guarding Joel Embiid and he gets to his spot in the mid-range, you're either going to foul him or he's going to hit the jumper right over you because he's 7 feet tall and he has like the cleanest looking mid-range jumper I've ever seen. He's incredible. And I don't think there's any argument you can make. You could talk about, like I said, LeBron James, but he just doesn't have the stats. He hasn't been as dominant as Joel Embiid has been. I think LeBron is still the best player in the NBA, but this season, Joel Embiid has been the most dominant player in the entire league. Steph Curry's been really good, but his team just really doesn't have the record. You could talk about Damian Lillard, too. He's missing a bunch of guys. I think he deserves a lot of credit and is a legitimate MVP candidate, but I don't think he matches up with Joel Embiid record-wise or even statistically. Embiid's just been unreal. He's on another level right now. I think he's on another level from everyone right now. Obviously, that could change. There's still a ton of time. We're not even halfway through the season. But right now, I don't think there is a single argument you could make that would convince me that Joel Embiid is not the MVP. It's just, like, if you go back and watch the game tonight. If you haven't and you're still kind of on the fence about Joel Embiid, go back and watch the game tonight. And I feel like a lot of people, for some reason, are really adverse to Joel Embiid winning this award. Because every time I tweet about it, people are under the tweet like, oh, he's a fraud. Like, no, you're wrong. Like, oh, no, it's this guy. It's this guy. Just enjoy greatness. This is something I've really been, like, trying to do more this season, is just enjoy, like, something I would tell any basketball fan is just to enjoy greatness, enjoy watching the amazing players you're playing, because it's way more fun than having a player you have a grudge against. It's way more fun than being like, oh, I hate that guy, I hope he doesn't succeed. It's just a lot more fun to just watch great basketball. So I highly recommend trying that out if you haven't. And yeah, shout out to Zach LaVine. The Bulls put up a great fight tonight against the 76ers team lacking Ben Simmons, to be fair, but still a really good roster. The MVP right now in Joel Embiid. I tweeted this out earlier. There's a lot of guys playing at MVP caliber level. None of them are playing up to the level of Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is by far and away the MVP right now. I get there's the whole narrative around LeBron. I get he's old, but the award shouldn't go to a player just because he's old, or the award should go to a player who is having the best season, who is the MVP. And right now, outside of all narratives, that is Joel Embiid. Moving on from that game, another great game tonight was Jazz Clippers. This one kind of came down to the wire in a weird way. It was kind of out of reach towards the end. The Clippers had a pretty comfortable lead. Donovan Mitchell hit 2 super clutch threes after really struggling all night, especially in the clutch. I saw a lot of Suns fans in particular talking trash on him because I guess there's that whole Donovan Mitchell-Devin Booker rivalry, which the Suns got a win today. Shout out to them. But this game was just really good. And what this game showed me is that, 1, the Clippers are capable of winning the West, and 2, the Jazz are capable of winning the West. Both of these teams played phenomenally tonight. It was cool to see both of these rosters back at full strength. Clippers have missed Paul George for a lot of games. The Jazz have really been missing Mike Conley. And both these teams were at pretty much full strength tonight. They gave each other their best, and the Clippers came out with a 4-point win. It was Donovan Mitchell really made it close. Those 2 threes cut it super close. It just wasn't enough in the end because the Clippers had too comfortable of a lead heading into those crucial final seconds. They got a steal off Paul George too. It was just a really good effort from the Jazz, just too little, too late. And Kawhi Leonard dominated this game tonight. He was amazing. Donovan Mitchell ended up with 30 despite struggling, like I said, so clearly didn't struggle that much. These two are just two really good teams. I would not be surprised if these two teams face off in the Western Conference Finals, especially if the Lakers keep dealing with injuries, especially to Anthony Davis. If that injury is lingering for Anthony Davis, I don't think LeBron can take down these two teams. These are just two really, really good basketball teams. And this game's huge because I think whoever gets that 1 seed has a ticket to the Western Conference Finals, unless something really unforeseen happens, because I think I've said this in a previous video that the Jazz, Clippers, and Lakers are my top 3 teams in the West. The Suns are really good. I think the Blazers, when fully healthy, are really good. There's a lot of teams you can make an argument for being that 4th, that 5th best team, but I think those 3 are by far and away right now the best 3 teams. And if you get that 1 seed and get to avoid those 2nd and 3rd teams, that's huge for your chances. So this is a huge win for the Clippers, who are trying to work their way up to that 1 seed. The Jazz still have it right now. They're 20-2, I think, in their last 22 games, which is absolutely unbelievable. This is only their 2nd loss since January 8th, and we're over halfway through February. This Jazz team has really been dominant, and that also speaks to how big of a win this was for the Clippers, the fact that they beat a team that has been so dominant throughout this season. I'll talk about Bucks Thunder real quick. This wasn't a super eventful game, but it's because my favorite team. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander kind of struggled tonight. The Bucks did an incredible job getting the ball out of his hands. He tried to force up some shots to try and just make something happen because no one was hitting. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. Dort had a pretty good game. He played really good defensively on Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton got the best of him a few times because he just has the height. It's going to happen. Giannis dominated on the boards. This Thunder team really lacks rebounding. Al Horford's good, but he doesn't have the athleticism to go up and grab some of those tougher boards like Giannis does, or like what Brook Lopez kind of does. So we just really got out-rebounded there. They had an incredible, like I said, defensive scheme to stop SGA. They really crowded the paint. Every time SGA would drive in, the Bucks would collapse on him, but Giannis used his length to force us into a ton of bad shots, a bunch of turnovers. This Bucks team, when they are on, are really, really good, and this defensive effort was without Jrue Holiday. So really huge shout out to them. I still think Mike Budenholzer needs to get fired at some point, but this is a good performance from them. I'll talk about the Suns too, because Chris Paul and Devin Booker both had really good games. I really just mainly want to talk about Chris Paul. The fact, I saw a tweet about this, and this is something I really agree with, is we were talking a lot about how LeBron is super old but still excelling. Chris Paul is is well into his 30s, like past 35 at this point. I believe he's 36 now. And he's still playing at a really, really, really high level as a 6-foot point guard. Like I believe tonight he had 19 assists. He had a clutch dagger 3 over, I believe it was Lonzo. Maybe not necessarily a dagger, but it kind of did put it out of reach a little bit because the Suns ended up winning this game by 18. But man, Chris Paul is so fun to watch, and it makes me so happy to see him succeed. One of my favorite players, obviously a former Thunder player from last season. I knew how good Chris Paul was going to be, and I think a lot of teams are going to regret not trading for Chris Paul because the way he's helping this Suns team is remarkable. Chris Paul and that Bucks team would have been crazy, crazy good. Chris Paul and this Sixers team would have made them even better. I just think there were so many places that Chris Paul could have landed. I think Phoenix got really lucky that he ended up landing there because you can just feel it when you look at this Phoenix team. They play with a lot of heart, which they did during the bubble too. I have to give them credit for that. But just the culture, like it almost feels like a winning culture already, despite this team having been terrible or just mediocre the past few seasons, not making the playoffs in a long time. They've really impressed so far this season. I was super high on them. I thought they could be a top 4 team in the West. I tweeted about that. I thought that it would be kind of fluctuating though. It just depended how well these pieces transferred, and they've transferred really, really well. Chris Paul deserves a ton of credit for that. In addition to just their whole roster, they've really worked well to be cohesive together. They're great. Also, I just want to give a shout to Zion. He should be an all-star, and I think people forget about him already, despite him being like the most hyped-up prospect in a very long time last season. So don't forget about Zion. He's really, really good. Pistons Grizzlies, I honestly didn't watch any of this game, and I just want to give a shout out to Ja, though. Ja had a really good game. Been kind of struggling a little bit. He's had some inconsistency issues this season. Dealt with a bunch of injury. That ankle injury he had really, I think that contributed a lot to his inconsistency as a player who relies a lot on his athleticism. But he had a really good game tonight. Hawks Celtics. This game was way closer than it should have been. Celtics only won by 12. The Celtics led by almost 30 at one point during the game. The Hawks made an awesome comeback, shout to them, but it just was too little, too late. Kemba Walker really stepped up this game. He looked like the Kemba Walker that they brought into Boston, and they need that Kemba Walker if they want any chance of coming out of the East. Which, unless they make some moves, I don't see this team coming out of the East. I don't see them better than the Sixers. I don't see them better than the Nets. I don't see them better than the Bucks. Yeah, I think the Celtics team desperately needs to make some additions, and they need to get better at closing out games. There's no reason this game, I think it got within single digits too. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to close out this team. Nuggets Cavaliers game, not much to talk about here other than Jamal Murray, who was incredible. Murray had the most efficient 50-point game of all time, and I'm not exaggerating. That is a literal statistical fact. Murray also did not have a single free throw. Not a single one. Not one, not two, not a single free throw attempt. And he dropped 50 points. He shot over 80% from the field. He just treated the Cavaliers this game like it was shoot around, like he was just kind of messing around. If this Jamal Murray could show up like most of the time, he doesn't have to drop 50 every game, but he needs to be like pretty efficient and just score. The problem with Jamal Murray and this Nuggets team is that he's super inconsistent. He has like those flashes we saw in the bubble. He has a flash like we saw tonight, and then on another night he'll put up 14 points on like 4 of 18 shooting, and the Nuggets just won't have enough scoring on that night to win. If he can put up efforts like this, not like I said, he has to have to be 50 points, but if he can put up solid scoring efforts on a nightly basis, then this Nuggets team becomes so much more dangerous. That was the reason why they made it to the Western Conference Finals, is because he had that scoring punch that they desperately needed. If he's not scoring the ball, it's Jokic. That's it. Because this team doesn't have a lot of scores. Michael Porter Jr. has a lot of talent as a scorer. He just hasn't made those leaps yet. He hasn't learned to take his shots. He forces way too many shots that kind of put him out of his rhythm. I think he's definitely going to develop into that role, but I think the Nuggets need this Jamal Murray to be more consistent if they want a shot at being that 4th best team in the West that we talked about. And I believe we have only 2 games left. I'll bring up Raptors Timberwolves real quick. This game was not very good. 86-81, not a great finish. Timberwolves made a solid comeback in that third quarter, but it just wasn't enough. Norman Powell, for his credit, I said he was really bad towards the start of the season when I made that video about the Raptors potentially blowing it up. I still think that is an option they should consider, but they've definitely turned it around this season. Like I said, they had a lot of issues going to Tampa Bay, not even playing in Toronto for this season, so you had to give them credit for that, or you had to give them a little bit of slack for having to deal with that situation to start the season. But Norman Powell's been the reason why they've stepped up a lot. He's been incredible. He's up to, I think, 16, almost 17 points per game average. He's really, really good. On the Timberwolves side of the ball, Anthony Edwards was super inefficient tonight, but that does not matter because he murdered Yuta Watanabe. And if you're one of the people, there are some sports writers, I'm not going to name any names, but there are some sports writers on Twitter that are saying that the dunk doesn't matter because Anthony Edwards shot like terribly. Shut up. Have fun. Like, come on. This kid threw down over someone. He murdered him. If you haven't seen the picture, please go watch it, or please go check out the photo. Please go check out the video because it is seriously one of the best dunks I've ever seen. He killed a man. So stop hating on the guy for having fun, man. It's so lame. Like, that was what I was talking about earlier. Appreciate greatness. Like, he might be struggling from the field, but he killed him, man. Appreciate it. And then finally, Warriors Magic. Not a lot to talk about in this one. This was a bad loss for the Warriors after having a pretty good stretch. You just can't lose this game. You can't. This Magic team isn't very good, and if you're a Warriors team that really wants to try and make a name for themselves out west this season, even without Klay Thompson, bringing all these new pieces, you can't lose to this Magic team. Really, they just lack that big defense. Nikola Vucevic has been an all-star caliber player. So many teams would benefit from Nikola Vucevic, so many teams, and he's really become one of the most underrated players in the NBA. People don't talk about him as much as they should. He is a top 5 center. Can I say that? It's close. It's very close if he's a top 5 center or not, because you've got obviously Embiid, Jokic. Talk about Cat. Talk about Gobert. Then I guess that 5th spot's like Bam. You have Vucevic. So there are some guys there. But man, Vucevic is so good. He's been the one bright spot in this Magic team this season. Shout out Magic fans. They've dealt with a lot this season, so I'm glad they have Vucevic kind of, giving them something cool to watch while they deal with like every injury possible. So with that being said, I think that that's pretty much everything I want to talk about today. That's all the games. Tell me, like I said, what takeaways did you have from the games? Let me know what you think about my Joel Embiid thing. I think he is the MVP. If you want to make an argument down below, go for it. If you made it to the end of the video, drop me an SGA is an all-star. I'm going to keep pushing this agenda. Even though we had a bad game tonight, the agenda pushing does not stop. SGA will be an all-star, and my bank account will cry when I purchase 3 of his all-star jerseys. So with that being said, I will see you guys later. Everyone, stay back.